Tiffany, welcome to Crypto Fashion Week 2022. We're so thrilled to have you here. My lovely co-host Enara and I have been looking forward to this interview all week.
As have I. Very, very excited.
Well, I think the most interesting thing about looking at culture is actually how different it is from place to place. If you look at American culture versus European versus African culture, your Asian culture. I always thought of culture as a heartbeat of innovation in fashion because it's exactly what it influences the way certain things look, whether it's skate and surf culture influencing California or underground nightlife or vibrant communities of Camden and London. This is the mirror of our times. So when we talk about digital ecosystems, whether it's virtual beings or digital fashion, do you also see that as a counterculture movement? And why is it actually happening right now?
Yeah, that's exactly why I got into it. Right now, I think it's definitely a subculture because it's a little out of control, which is what is, I think, fantastic. What also makes it so cool and interesting is for example, if you're collecting NFTs or you're on Discord, there's a whole other language, and there's you have to understand the codes and really be dedicated to whatever the movement is, if that's an NFT or if it's a platform. And I think you have to really, really go into it hard and know who to follow, and you're kind of jumping around from one platform to another and finding clues, and I think that's just it keeps it away from people who are trying to maybe exploit or who aren't really hardcore and who don't really believe in it and who don't share the same values. So I think it's all of these subcultures have a certain value system, plus you have the technology evolving constantly. So that's also what's so exciting. So I think it keeps it underground in a sense because it's moving so fast. And plus, I think people that are younger, that are true digital natives, their brains work a little bit differently than someone like me who's been around on the earth for a while. So I think there's this kind of natural separation, or I don't know, Darwinism maybe, that's in effect. Yeah,
you're definitely talking about that really special moment of scaling the first believers and what happens to the community, where that tiny community that started something now takes it and shares the message with the world, and what happens in that metamorphosis. So cool to get to watch that.
When did you sort of first begin to love or understand Web3 and find that it's a necessity for your profession and maybe for your personal life?
I started working in Tokyo in the late 90s, and that's when the internet was really becoming more mainstream, and I used it for my work. And also I think in that moment in Asia, in Tokyo in particular, technology was very important and widely used. When I found Web3, which was just before COVID, I started to just see that there was something going on these platforms that I didn't understand, and I was so drawn to it. And I just saw this whole culture happening while I was doing something completely different, and while the world was looking at other things, and so it just really excited me. And I thought when I saw virtual clothing is when I got really, really excited, and it really opened my mind about, okay, wow, you can wear fire. Okay, that's a look. and then there was all Twitch and live streaming culture too happening, and that economic system of supporting a creator that you like and participating and interacting constantly in a virtual way also was really fascinating to me.
I mean, seriously, people want to wear fire, people want to wear horns. I'm super curious to understand from you. You said participatory media earlier. So I think participatory media, composable media, I think that's everything. Being that you work at a large media company, what's your responsibility? Or maybe what's the responsibility of the magazine or the media company to the community?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the entire company, that's for sure. But I think what I find interesting, and one of the reasons I wanted to take on this position is, one, it's the publication that was kind of introduced me to fashion, one of them, and has has a history and an incredible history, and of great artists and thinkers and writers and journalists that have contributed to this legacy, and so to be able to participate in that is like a huge honor for me. And then at the same time, it's a moment of change in terms of media's place in people's lives, how they interact with it, where they get information, and what they expect from a media. And now people are media, fashion brands are media. So it's also like, how amazing is it to work at a legacy media, we could say, and integrate all of these experiences that I have had. So it's really cool to be able to have all of this infrastructure, and then to try and see how to make these two worlds coexist.
There's a beauty also in looking at this cycle where somebody's quest for novelty then at some point becomes legacy and an outdated structure. So if we take as an example photography and what it did to the world of art as it was becoming more and more prevalent, is that it actually changed the desire that the artists had. Instead of depicting the world one-to-one and competing with a camera, which you really can't compete with, even if no matter how good you are, instead it encouraged artists to go somewhere new and explore the world of their lives, of their emotions, what they're feeling inside, and paint those states and those feelings. So I think something similar might be happening to fashion now, where instead of just focusing on quality of the fabric or the stitching or the sourcing of the material, fashion is becoming about world building, how identity fits within that world. How should brands and companies also respond to this change now that they're colliding with this new shift in digital?
So I think, when you go into these new, into the metaverse, it's really important to know who you are, and also to serve the community. That's like the most important, whether that's in in gaming or creating NFTs. You have to respect the ecosystem and contribute to the community. That's the big difference now, I think. If you don't do that in the metaverse, people are very reactive, and I think they will like shut you down, which is great because it's like enough of these practices. Like we're trying to do something different here.
Japan's always been an early leader with avatars. I'm curious to know your opinion on how fashion avatars, now that the focus is literally on what they're wearing, if you have any insight around fashion avatars, or how avatars might break open some new understanding or new ways of looking at community online in particular.
I think the issue is like, where does the avatar live, and how often are you in that space? I think that right now is kind of what's missing. I think, and also there's so many platforms, and which one do you invest your time in? Once we have a bit more interoperability between different platforms, I think it will be much easier for people to dive in. And I think about it a lot, but I'm not quite sure where I would show it and how I would play with it, and where it would live.
You're opening up a whole pathway of how does a virtual avatar franchise look like? There's such cool pathways of how a virtual being can be activated, especially as the experience of looking at a being becomes more high definition, where it's no longer just pixels, but it really starts to feel more and more real. I think that's a very interesting future we're stepping into.
Well, yeah, but then again, it's like, what is the value system of that person or thing? And if I invest in this, what is the exchange? What community am I a part of? What do we do together? I think that's where I find it very, very interesting. What do they make? That's, I think, the juice.
Just one last thing. Do you see a digital fashion brand ever becoming as large as these traditional fashion houses, such as the Balenciagas, the Valentinos?
Yeah, for sure. One thing is I follow the culture. I really follow it, and I see also how the brands work, like how many editions they make, what platforms are you able to use them on, you know, what is the NFT about, what do you get with the NFT, you know, how high is the quality of the AR filter, and then how do you make a piece of clothing that people will want, virtual clothing they'll want to wear for a long time. So it's more this, like, the potential and the thought process around the brands that fascinates me and really unlocks a lot of potential in my mind of what it can be. So I learn a lot from the different brands and the different new platforms.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really informative. I've been wanting to sit down and have a conversation with you for a very long time.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the first of many. Well, thank you for attending the final day of Crypto Fashion Week. I'm your host, Lady Phoenix, joined by the illustrious, the talented, the bossed up Enara, and of course, our superstar guest, Tiffany Godoy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys can see more at cryptofashionweek.xyz.